Good evening, everybody. I am going to start the meeting by reading the message from our governor. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Laws 30A-18, and the governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Hubbston Vietnam Veterans Memorial Committee will be conducted by remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via Zoom. In the event that we're unable to do so, despite the best efforts, we will post on the town's website a comprehensive record of proceedings after the meeting. Amen. All right, I'd like to welcome you all to the meeting. We're still waiting for Ed Blanchard, but I believe that we can start. We have a lot of territory to cover. Much has happened since our meeting back on the 11th of March and our informal rendezvous on the Common around the 23rd of March. So following our agenda for April 5th, 2021, I would like to ask for a review and acceptance of the meeting of our previous meeting on March 11th. You have all received a copy of that. And so I'd like somebody to recommend that we approve the minutes of the meeting.
I'd second it.
Okay, it's approved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, so Dolores, we now have as our official secretary, and thank you very much for offering to do that. And the next item on the agenda is to talk a little bit about my meeting with the selectmen on the 29th of March. My objective for having that meeting was twofold, and that was to ask for the nominations for our committee to be accepted, and also to ask for permission to locate our memorial on the common ground owned by the town in front of the Federated Church. And I can tell you that the meeting went very well. They allowed me to do a little more than the Reader's Digest version of the genesis of our committee. We initially thought that the town charter called for 5 members, but it was the wish of Ryan, our town administrator at the time, to have a full boat committee consisting of 7 members. And we've accomplished that. We now have a full membership of 7 members. And I can tell you that all the nominations and they accepted the 7 members that we now have. So we're in really good shape regarding that. I got into a little detail about Hubbston and its call to patriotism over all of the conflicts that our country has been involved in, and how the townspeople responded, and also that after that, the town responded by putting up memorials, and it was certainly time for the town to talk about, discuss, and erect a memorial for our Vietnam veterans. So they were very inquisitive, asked a few more questions, and I gave them a general idea of the location, and they made a motion and accepted the motion that the town would allow a memorial to be erected on the town common. It was kind of a blanket approval. And we, of course, I've promised to stay in touch with them regarding more details regarding the exact location and so on and so forth. So went well. I've also asked for the opportunity to be on the meeting coming up on the 26th of April. And I thought that I would run that by you now. I believe that as an initial part of our outreach to the community, that we should have a sign indicating that we will have a Vietnam Veterans Memorial and where it will be located and so on and so forth. So I had discussion with Erin, who is the executive assistant to the select board, and told her in general what I was looking to do. It would be, of course, an outdoor sign, and it would simply let the world know that we will be erecting a memorial. And I've done a little bit of outreach with that. And of course, everything I do will be shared with you and run by you. And it would be a simple wording. Sarah and I have talked a little bit about it. And like I say, we'll get into more detail, but literally it would be something that would be durable. I might consider having a couple of them made if for some reason one got damaged, and it would simply say future site of the Hubbston Vietnam Veterans Memorial, and also something to the effect that would say, visit us on Facebook, Hubbston Vietnam Veterans Memorial, so that when we begin to evolve and do our outreach and do our fundraising, et cetera, that would be one of the mediums that would be available to us, namely a Facebook page. But I'll get into that in more detail in the future. Does anybody have any input on that pertaining to the information that would be on that sign?
I don't have any information on that add to the sign. That sounds good, but we have
Thank
a
you.
sign bylaw, and we just have to make sure that the sign we have made is not in violation of our town bylaw.
Correct. Yeah, and I told them that by that time I would have an idea of what would be on it and what the size would be. So we'll have more to talk about that in the future. So in between our last meeting on the 11th of March, we had an informal meeting on the Common to kind of figure out where we'd like to put the memorial. And we came up with a really good recommendation, and that would be somewhere between the Civil War memorial that is currently there and the Spanish-American War, World War I memorial, which if you were standing looking at the Common would be to the left of it. There's 60 plus feet. It would fit very nicely. It would have an unobstructed view of the road. And I think that would be an appropriate, we all agreed that would be an appropriate location for it. I told the selectmen that, and they said, in general, they agreed with it. They couldn't visualize exactly where it was, but they went ahead with approving, in general, the idea of locating a memorial. So, all right.
Bill, do we know where the lot line is? I know that there was quite a bit of town to do on granting the church where the town common, where the town meetings used to be held, and all of that land at one time was held by the town. And don't want to complicate it, but I wonder if there's any lot lines to make sure that we're putting it on town land instead of church land.
Yeah, and I think that there in the area that we're planning on, is part of the town property, but I'll verify that. I know that there is a delineation and some of it is still from the church, but we'll be sure that we're on good ground. Of course, when it comes to doing that, we'll do the dig safe and make sure that everything is following safety measures also. Okay. The next is a very important part of our meeting, and that was an update on the definition of who is classified as a Vietnam era veteran. And Sarah Wyman, our Veteran Service Officer and our committee member, did some research on our behalf and came up with a definition. I shared that definition with you, but I'm going to read it again so that as an open meeting, the world will know precisely what the definition is, and then we'll talk about it. And that is, and I quote, according to the United States of America Vietnam War commemoration, the term Vietnam veteran describes those who served on active duty in the U.S. Armed Forces at any time during the period of November the 1st, 1955 to May the 15th, 1975, regardless of duty location. So I'm opening it up to the committee for feedback on that.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you, Steve.
Good to me.
I'm relieved you found that.
Great. Yeah, Sarah, because Tom and Bill and I had talked about that when we had our informal meeting, and there were 4 or 5 different definitions that were around. So to get an official designation from Sarah in her official capacity is a good thing.
I'll make a motion that we accept that definition as we move forward, as was stated by Bill.
Okay. Seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Wonderful. Okay. And then it will be our responsibility to be sure that that definition is stated for the all-inclusive nature of what we are looking to accomplish here. So with the help of Sarah and the help of Steve gave me a physical list of 35 names of individuals that he was aware of from Hubbston that were Vietnam veterans. And then Sarah, in her capacity as our Veteran Service Officer, has access to a roster. And Sarah, talk a little bit about that for us, please, in regards to the numbers that you came up with, and also what kind of information is contained on that roster, and possibly how we have access to that, and how we can use it.
Okay, so the roster, it's generated at the records headquarters. And I went through a course to learn how to use the program. And you can sort veterans. It's only veterans that were in Massachusetts when they joined the service. So I don't have access to anybody that moved in to town or into the state, after the fact. But any Massachusetts resident, when they join the service, they'll be in the database. It comes up with typically just their DD 214. If there are any amendments, those usually show up too, but it's not an entire record. But the DD 214 is all we need to verify the service dates. And it's not all inclusive. There are some that are missing. But right now, when I pulled the roster, it was 84 Hubbston residents. And that's
Wow.
just for Hubbston.
Isn't that something? Mhm.
Anyone who wasn't there when they joined, so that's significantly more than I thought there were gonna be. Because I sorted it by that era too, so.
So I would assume that the 35 names that Steve has given us would also be on that roster. And assuming, that's right, yeah. Sometimes you can assume and sometimes you can't, but that certainly gives us a firm nucleus of the numbers we may be looking at. And then, of course, there are going to be others, as our previous meeting indicated, that moved into town after and may not have joined from Massachusetts. And so we are going to need to find a way to identify those individuals also. Sarah, can I ask you, will it say on the DD 214 whether or not they served in country?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it will.
Good.
Yes.
Yep.
We're glad to hear that. So, because Steve, we know, had at least 14 from that list. You just straighten me out, Steve, if I'm wrong. 14 from that list who had been in country. And
Yes.
we were all in accord that we would have a special designation, an asterisk, and we would be identifying those individuals who served in country.
Right.
Okay, and that's
You-
correct.
This is Tom. You actually have two of us on this committee that are people who served but moved into town subsequent to that, in myself and Bill.
Correct. Mhm.
And he and I were talking just the other day about that issue about the outreach and then how we deal with that. And the DD 214 is really the answer. And it's important because Bill and I and our wives, or my wife and my sister-in-law who dates Bill, have gone several times to restaurants that have a free meal for veterans on Veterans Day. And it's amazing how many people show up. And I always look at the guys that have the Vietnam vet hats on and go, welcome them home and talk to them. And it's amazing how many have no idea what they're talking about. They're
That's
just wearing a
shameful.
hat.
Mhm.
They're just wearing a hat to get a free meal. So the DD 14 is the way to do it. I think it's just we need to just do all the outreach we can do and in the surrounding towns at least to know that if you were in the military during those dates, you're considered a Vietnam vet. Now that doesn't mean you're going to get a star. You're going to have to give us a 14 to show that. So I think
Everybody's
we're
on the
right
same
track.
page with that.
Yeah.
I am.
Yep.
And that's a really good point, because that is going to bring up how we do our outreach and how we do our verification. And, every veteran can either has a copy of his or her DD 214 or has access to getting it. Now, Sarah, for example, if a veteran doesn't have a DD 214, you have access to that on the roster?
Right, as long as they were in Massachusetts when they joined, they
Gotcha.
should be.
Mhm.
So, there was the issue with the fire in St. Louis and
Correct.
some people's records, weren't saved like they should have been. So sometimes we do have to put into a request, for a copy of that, but not often. So.
I mean, I had lost
Right.
mine, and I had to go get mine. I just went to the local VA group up in Gardner, and within a couple of weeks, I had a copy.
Good. So we're going to use that as our prerequisite. So someone who from out of town says that they were a veteran, we're going to ask him for that verification, the DD 214. And I think that it's not impossible to get, as Tom has just explained. So definitely that's going to be our criteria for proper identification.
Bill,
Right, yeah.
question.
That
Bill,
should be mandatory, I think.
Gotcha, Steve. Yeah.
a question as to, do we have the right to put all of these people's names on the plaque without their approval? Because I know a few of my friends who are Vietnam veterans who might just say, you know, it's a thing in the past, and I would prefer maybe not to have it on the plaque. You know, you would think they'd all be proud to have it on the plaque, but I'm wondering, do we have the right to just put them on the plaque without asking for sort of having them verify that they will be on the plaque?
Committee members, what do you have for input?
Isn't that information public record?
They published it in a newspaper and they couldn't object to it, so,
Oh, okay.
so that's a public record. You can get it on the web. You can get anybody who served in Vietnam. They don't have to give their permission.
I would think, Ed, that once we get into the outreach, if there are some people that would not want to be, they
Yeah.
could just contact us and said, just leave us off. And I mean, who are we to tell them no?
Right.
So is it public record? I didn't hear that. Is it public record?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
It's a DD 214.
Okay.
If they've been in the military, the whole world can get it.
right. Good.
So do you feel that that's not an issue and we don't have to, if we're going to do an outreach, should we have a box on the outreach to check that, yes, they would like to be on the plaque?
What I would say is that as we develop our Facebook page, which is one of the things we're going to talk about tonight, we'll have a list. And that list, because it is public record, we'll have a list of the names that we currently have. And we'll put a caveat. If for some reason you don't want to be on this list and your name is listed here, just let us know.
Sure.
So I think that we cover our base in that regard.
I have a thought because I'm on the Watertown Memorial that they have down there. And it had come to light that some people were missed. And some people who had died and they for whatever reason, name was left off the list. And their relatives were very irate that their name was not on the list. So I would bring that up only if someone doesn't want it, then maybe we could talk to them about it.
Well, Bill, that's what we're going to try to do this outreach for. I mean, you know, we can't drag them in. You know, we need to get out in the media and if they don't want to be there, they won't answer. If they do want to be there, they will answer, I guess.
Two good points there. Yeah. Two good
You're going
points
to miss
there.
somebody.
Yeah.
We'll miss somebody, but we ought to be able to at least answer the question that we did everything we could. And if you weren't on the internet, if you weren't reading the paper, if you weren't listening to television, if you weren't doing, you know, then, you know, we can't help you.
I could, you know, a bronze plaque can be made and there can be, you know, additional names added if we ran into
Sure.
that situation. It'd be a matter of just having made out of bronze and then putting a few holes through it and adding names if we ran into that situation.
Well, you know, the National Vietnam Memorial has a whole panel that's pretty much people that were left off. My best friend in Annapolis was killed as still an ensign pilot, and because he was shot down by a MiG out of an adjoining state, they decided he was not in the Vietnam War. You know, and the interesting thing was that there were 2 airplanes shot down from that squadron on adjoining days. 26 men died, and none of them were on the Vietnam Memorial to begin with, because Cambodia was officially not part of that at that point in time. It is now, but so that happens, and we just have, that's a good idea, Ed. We could have a way to add somebody. The real problem is we don't have a way to take anybody off, but my guess is that there's not going to be many of those.
Yeah, and we'll cover our bases. I expect that we'll be able to use all of those sources that Tom's brought up, the media, the newspaper, the Facebook. Tom and I are going to be doing a series of interviews on the cable access channel starting tomorrow morning, where we're going to talk about the genesis, and I would suspect that we'll be doing a number as the plan and program develops. So, and on that, the Facebook, once again, if we put that list out there, we'll have the opportunity to add and also the opportunity to take away should an individual decide that they do not want to be, on the plaque. So, all right. Now, fundraising. So the next topic is fundraising. This is, of course, in the very beginning stages. And at the last meeting, we talked about Gofundme and setting up a Gofundme and also grants. And Sarah had done some research into that. And so, Sarah, can you tell us what else you've discovered since that time?
Right, so the GoFundMe didn't require bank account information initially. So that's set up, and that's what I wanted to find out today. What are we gonna have an account to put it to, or, I was curious about that. And the grants, the application is due in a couple days. So as long as we are, on the same page about the costs that we're gonna request, then, I can get that submitted by tomorrow. So.
It's
Okay.
Well, we
Excellent.
have a volunteer. I asked him, and he
It'd be
volunteered
Bill
to be
W.
the treasurer.
Mhm.
And,
So Sarah, you and
Yes.
I had talked about the possibility of you taking on that responsibility as treasurer, and but we have a volunteer to step forward. So smile on Sarah's face, I can
Yeah, thank
see.
you.
Bill W., thank you very much for offering to accept that position as treasurer, because there will be money coming in, and hopefully a number of different ways. And Sarah, going back to GoFundMe, what at some point wouldn't we have to have an account?
Mhm.
Okay.
Oh, when? I don't know when, but at some, yeah. So, people can donate to the cause, but, we have to have bank information to do anything with the donations.
Okay, so Bill W., as part of your responsibilities, you'll be coordinating with Sarah on as we develop the GoFundMe, and making the necessary steps to get a bank account that would specifically be for Vietnam Veterans Memorial Bank account.
I was gonna talk to you about 2 people being on it, set up an account tomorrow, the next day of the GFA for that. Does that sound reasonable to you?
I'm having a hard time hearing you. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me at all?
No,
I can hear you.
I can just barely hear him.
no.
Speak a little louder, Bill.
Now you're muted.
No, now you muted yourself. Bill, you mean, okay, now you're all right.
Okay, what I was thinking about is, Bill and I, go down to GFA and set up an account with two names on it, just in case one of us couldn't do something to deposit money to that account. What do you think, Bill? Do you think that would be viable for you?
Yep.
to-
How about, Sarah, is that plausible for you to do that with Bill?
That's fine. Just tell me where it is and what time, and I can meet you there.
What about 11 o'clock tomorrow?
And GFA, because I'm not familiar, is that in town?
Right
Yes,
right
Okay.
off, right next to the fire station.
Okay. Yeah, I'll meet you there at 11. That's fine.
See you
Great.
I think that one of you will have to put your own social security number on the account.
I'll do
You could
that.
ask them for a club account, but I think one of you is probably gonna have to put your social security number on it to make that work.
No, I'll do it since I'm the treasurer. I'll do that.
Thank you.
Super. Okay. Very, very good point. Progress is being made. I love it. Okay, so we'll get that GoFundMe set up. We'll have that on our Facebook, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then the part about grants. Ed Blanchard has been very helpful to volunteer, to outreach, to try to get some numbers for us. And so it was about 15 minutes before the meeting. He was able to send me and Sarah a quick email. So Bill, give us some input on what you've found out so far. And if we can in fact agree that for the grant purposes, if we put in these numbers, because the grant date deadline is the 9th. So I'd love to get that in process. I'd rather have them come back and ask us questions later than not get it in and not be eligible for that grant through the state, which is up to $20,000 matching funds. And based on the first number that Ed got for us for the granite plaque, we're going to need help. So Ed, tell us what you found and share that with the committee.
Okay. I have a source that does bronze plaques. They're not the only people that make bronze plaques, obviously, but they did some quality work. They did the one for Dave Tatton up at the bandstand, if you want to see their work. But I gave him a copy of the Spanish-American War monument that is on the Common, and asked them to quote us something similar, and told them that we'd have probably 80 names plus, and to give us a quote. So they did that, and the quote came back 21,000 plus, which was a real eye opener for me because I had no idea it would be that much. But here's some of my comments on that. Because the plaque for the Spanish-American monument had an eagle on it and had some branches on it and was in the fancy category, we could probably, if we didn't raise enough money, we could take a look at other options. You could get a granite eagle and not have it in bronze, and we could do some different things on the monument and maybe cut our cost there on the bronze plaque a little bit. I'm waiting for a quote on the granite stone, which would be approximately 10 feet wide, 5 feet high, and 18 inches thick. And I'm hoping I can get that tomorrow, Sarah, because I know you got a time pressure. I'll see if I can't call the quarry and get us a quote on that. The other thing that we would have to do is we're going to have to pour a base for the granite monument, and that base would have to be 4 feet deep because of frost.
Right.
And so we'd be pouring a hole that would be maybe 2 feet wide and 4 feet deep and 10 feet long. we could just put in an estimated cost of $950 for that. And I think that would cover us pretty well. I'm looking at, why wouldn't we have the highway department come up with their backhoe, actually dig the hole. And, you know, we'd only have to put a frame around the top of the hole so that it would square off, and the rest of it the cement would just fill the hole. And that would give us a strong enough base so that this granite monument wouldn't go anywhere.
Is that
So-
base, is the base $950? The base?
Well, the concrete base, I think we could do it for
Okay.
that money without any
Right.
problem.
And I mean, I think that's a good number, Ed, but I suspect that I'm actually pretty sure that I can find a contractor that'll dig that hole for us.
Yeah.
For this.
Yeah, but for the quote, we don't want to come up short on the quote because it's
no.
going to be matching funds, and we're probably already at 22,000 without the cost of the granite. And the
Right.
granite might be, who, I don't know, I'm guessing maybe $4,000. So we're probably looking at a $25,000, $26,000 monument. And if we could get matching for that, then we'd have to raise half of that. And
Right.
certainly 13,000 is a lot easier to raise than 26.
Yeah, no question.
And Ed, you being the old fundraiser, you know how difficult it can be to raise money. But boy, we have a noble cause here, and we're going to be doing, I think, a kick-ass job with our outreach and the opportunity. So, Sarah, let's get back to that grant. Do you feel that based on what Ed, did you receive the copy from Ed?
If it was just a few minutes ago, probably. I've heard my email go off, but I haven't opened it.
Okay.
You know, so
So what
I'm
else
sure
do
I did.
you? Okay, great.
Yep.
So Ed's going to get you the quote for a quote. Now,
Mhm.
of course, we may look around for others, but in order to get this grant proposal in,
Mhm.
besides and using the 950 as a legitimate number for digging the base, et cetera,
Mhm.
and using that $21,000, $21,369.80 quote for the plaque. And when Ed gets you the other number for the granite, what else is it that you need to submit that? Is there anything else that we need to help you with to get that proposal in?
Not that jumped out at me. No, I think that was really the only information I had to provide that I wasn't sure on.
Great, great. Because let's make it a point to get that in. I'd
Yeah.
rather get rejected, or at least if they question us, then we can back it up with more facts, details, and designs and anything they need. But I believe that is a great way to take the pressure off us. I mean, I did a little bit of reading into the history of Hubbston, and every time I read, I find out interesting things. And as you know from the synopsis that I gave you in the past, for the Civil War, our town sent 164 men off to fight. 120 volunteered. The other 44 were actually drafted or substituted. Literally, every town had a quota that they had to fill. And if you didn't fill the quota, you had to pay a substitution fee, which was $150 per man. And so in reading it over, and I won't delve into it too much, reading it over, we actually had 44 that were either drafted or were paid mercenaries, many of which were not even from this country, let alone this town. And of the 164, we had 44 casualties. 44 men did not return home. Many of them died from disease. We had one that died in Andersonville prison, but we certainly paid the cost. We also had, it was funny, we had one guy that deserted, and it was from Cole Harbor on the 2nd of June, 1863. And his last name was Eaton, Eaton. And I was wondering if any of his relatives still lived in town. And because he didn't come back, so it was curious. We actually had a deserter from Hubbston. But here's my point. Immediately after the Civil War, the town said, we need to do something to show respect to these men who served, and 44 of them that gave all. And so they were thinking about building a memorial hall. They were certainly thinking about a memorial itself. And the town designated $800 to build a memorial. And the soldiers' home, sort of like the predecessor of the GAR, which was the Grand Army of the Republic, the veterans from Civil War, had $223 saved up. So they had that amount in the kitty, and nothing ever happened. So when the first history book was printed in 1881, there was no memorial for our Civil War veterans. And it wasn't until 4 years later, 1885, that the memorial actually went up. So the cost of living has certainly increased from the $800 they put aside to what we're looking at here. So that's great. Sarah, I presume that you'll finish that up and get it in on time, right?
Yes.
Thank you so
Hey,
much.
Bill,
Yep.
Bill, I'm surprised that you skipped over a piece of that history. You know, when they all came back from the war, they were being taxed on, they had been taxed on their properties. And of course, they hadn't made any money. They didn't get paid any money while they were fighting that war. And so what did they do? You should know this, sir. They took
I do
part
know
in the
about Shays' Rebellion. That was the Revolutionary War, by the way, Tom.
Oh, yeah, that was. You're right. Sorry.
And
I thought I had you.
Yeah. Yeah, and literally, we changed the spelling of our name. That's SHAY''S.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah, it
changed
is.
it to SHEA. But yeah, that's an interesting history, and you're spot on. Just a different war.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. So moving along. Now we've talked about our strategies to identify and do our outreach to make sure that we're all inclusive. And we talked about the ways that we can do that. And also talking about other ways to raise money. And so we have the GoFundMe, we have the grant potentially. Let's hope that that works out in the right direction. And also having representatives from the committee setting up at Field Day and at the fair, I think is another way that we can get the word out there. We can set up and have something for donations and so on and so forth. So I think that that would be another good way to reach out. We have the fair in June, the fair in June and the field day in September. So we'll have a lot to talk about before then, and how we represent ourselves and what we put out there. But I think we'll all agree that that would be another way to let local citizens and the area citizens know that what we're doing and making progress on.
Bill,
So-
would it make sense if we're gonna do outreach to all these people and families that actually have Vietnam veterans that we're going to put on the plaque? As part of that outreach, should we give them the opportunity to see if they'd like to donate anything toward it?
Certainly, absolutely. And I think that's a very good point, Ed. When we do the Facebook, we can say, we're certainly soliciting donations and by all means, would appreciate any and all support. And especially those whose family will be recognized. I think that's a great point.
And Bill, I know we had talked about, I could get the list, Lori,
Oh, yeah.
for all the veterans from the census. Because that's what I'd done in the past, is send letters out to everyone who identified as a veteran on the previous year's census. That's how I've done outreach for
Super, yeah.
the benefits part that I do. And I can include that and just send them a letter, because I know a lot of them aren't on Facebook. It's a good way to reach a lot of people, but the ones that don't use a computer very often, we still want to reach them.
Absolutely. Yeah, great point.
So
Appreciate you doing
is
that.
everyone okay with me
That's a
drafting
good
up a
idea.
letter?
Yeah.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
Sarah. That's a great
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah, great. That sounds good. Okay. I believe to follow protocol, we need to officially designate the two positions that we've identified, and that would be secretary and treasurer. So I would like to officially nominate Dolores Ordway to be our secretary. Would somebody second that?
I will.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, you're volunteered. I'd also like to nominate Bill Whitcomb for our treasurer for the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Committee. Will somebody second that, please?
Second.
I will.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Perfect, okay. So you're in, so thank you very much for that additional help. I see one other important thing to talk about this evening, and that would be to put together a Facebook page. I know that some of us have had some experience at doing that. And so I think we all agree that that is a valid way of getting the word out, and to do all of the above, the outreach, the verification, the donations, spreading the word about the GoFundMe, and so on and so forth. So I would be looking for initially a volunteer to offer to do the Facebook for the Hubbston Vietnam Veterans Memorial. Do I have any volunteers?
I'll make a motion, we elect Patty Burke.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's very,
Ed,
she's
you and I are
very,
on the same page.
very sharp with the computer.
So that would.
In
that
case
would
you don't know,
translate to Bill Shea is going to volunteer.
in case you don't know, Patty Burke is a local gal who happens to work for me, and she's my IT person, and she is a whiz kid when it comes to that. Unless there's another volunteer,
Yeah.
because I was hoping that.
All in favor?
Wait a minute. I was hoping that
I nominate our chairman.
all right, do I have anybody seconds that motion?
I will.
Yeah, everybody's laughing. That's a good thing. All right, I accept the nomination to do the Facebook, and I'll expect a donation from all of you to help me pay Patty. No, she's a sweetheart and does wonderful work for me, and I'm glad to have her on board. So without in the next week or so, there will be a Facebook page. It will be named the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Facebook page. Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Does that link,
Absolutely.
does that link directly to the GoFundMe page?
Sarah, will I be able to put a link on it that will go directly to GoFundMe?
Yeah, you can share a link to the actual fundraiser, and then we can make it shareable also so that other people can share it on their pages and family members can donate, and it can reach
Right.
wide that way.
Should it not be Hubbardston, Mass? Vietnam
Okay.
veterans?
All right, that's good. So Hubbston, Massachusetts, Vietnam Veterans Memorial,
Memorial.
Facebook. Okay, I'll make sure that, because there are other Hubbstons, as we know. Okay, so I pledge to have that Facebook up and running within a week. And obviously we'll share it with all of you. Stop laughing, Tom, so.
We don't have a picture of what it's going to look like. That would help if we had a picture of what the stone would look like.
Exactly. And as soon as we decide on the design and we know how we're going to go forward, we'll definitely put that up, because I would see by the time we do the field day that we'll have that design in place, and we'll certainly have pictures of that design to show people. And that's, of course, a motivation, because they want to know what it's going to look like. And as you know, we have set goals, and we have established that we will have the design in place and all of the funding in place by Veterans Day this year, 2021. And we will have the dedication for the memorial by Memorial Day, May 30th, 2022. When we have the official ceremony. So, all right, now, let's see. So we finished with Facebook. Okay, this is an open part of the meeting. What questions, comments, or other territory do we need to talk about?
I have something real quick.
Okay.
Ed, you talked about the bylaws for the signs.
Yeah.
Is there a way you can look into that and find out what the requirements are? Because I mean, I offered to make the signs and just donate them to the cause, because I make signs and that type of thing. So, I'd like to just
Sarah,
Laurie Reed,
Sarah, Ed,
Laurie
Ed
Reed
wrote
is
the
town clerk.
bylaw.
I don't know what.
Ed wrote the bylaw.
No, that's
Oh.
not true. The Hubbston Business Association wrote the bylaw. But
Okay.
Laurie Reed, our town clerk,
Yeah.
can send you a link for the zoning bylaws.
Okay.
And right in the zoning bylaws, it tells you what size sign you can have.
Oh, okay. It's just a matter of size.
Yeah,
Okay.
pretty much. So.
So I'm offering to make this sign, the future location of the memorial. I can get started on that if that's okay. So we don't have to pay a company to make it.
Yes, great.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Thank you, Sarah. Yep, that's great. And Sarah, I'll send you an email, and I'll copy everybody else and just go over the wording with you so we have an idea. And if you contact Laurie Reed, you can find out what we're allowed to do. What I want is that something that is totally visible from the road. And we only have a 1 or 2 second time frame where people are driving by. By the way, the town fathers were very, very happy that we're working on this at this time, because they have this big plan for beautification of downtown and making downtown a more focal point of the center. So this is wonderful that we're also going to be contributing to the change for downtown. So once you find out from Laurie Reed, if you could proceed with that, that'd be great.
And we also talked about possibly doing the hometown hero banners at some point, right?
Yes, yeah. Explain that a little more so the committee would be familiar with that.
So I'm sure you've seen them. We talked about Bolton being one of the towns that stands out, where you drive down the main road and the banners of veterans that lived in that town are hanging, and they're usually donated by family members, and they'll have their service dates and a picture of them, you know, on a nice banner. And, you know, it's a nice way to just honor veterans, you know, on days that aren't just Memorial Day. You know, the flags change out, the banners would change out, you know, for events in town. But in the downtime, we could always hang some of the veteran banners.
And how do you
Might
go
wanna
about
coordinate
making
that
them?
with
Katie?
Young, what's her name?
Katie Young.
Katie Young, yeah, because she has all of the, she knows all where all the banners are and sells those banners for donations from businessmen. And she would, you know, she would know when those banners would be available, and
Right.
she might be able to help you coordinate on that.
Okay.
In terms of the sign, we've got to go under a commercial basis. We don't want to go under a homeowner basis
Yeah.
because
Can-
the sign
can we
size
use-
will change.
Can we use the marquee that we see in town at all, or is that belongs to somebody else? The marquee that advertises things, like near the pallet factory, they advertise
Right.
different things like that. No?
That's Katie Young, who is in charge. She's a selectman, and she runs the Hubbston celebration. And periodically for things such as the fair, the dinghy dash, the light fight at during Christmas time, and so on and so forth. She has those that she puts up. So that's Katie Young. And Sarah, perhaps you could talk with her about those and see if there might be a time when we can coordinate that, or I don't see why we couldn't have both up at the same time, because certainly you get more attention if there's two up. So I think that's a great idea. And if we can follow
I
that
mean, I
up.
think,
Go ahead, Tom. Mhm.
Sarah, if you have any questions regarding sign size or the zoning, or have any questions, just call me.
Okay.
And or I'll try and help you with that, because
Okay.
it's sort of a complicated sign law.
All right.
And Ed, can you give Sarah your phone number right now, if you don't mind saying that?
I was thinking that maybe Dolores could just get the names and email addresses of all the committee and telephone numbers and shoot that out to all of us so that we
Yeah,
have.
great. Yeah, great.
But Sarah, I'm at 978
Mhm.
7 o'clock.
660 6280.
6280.
Yes, 660 6280.
Okay.
Everything that Bill has sent us has everyone's email on it. All the correspondences have all the emails of everyone. Do
And
you
the only
have
thing
those?
missing is, and I'll send that to you again, Dolores, at the end of tonight. The only one Steve, can you give us your phone number if you don't mind? So I have everybody's now, and Sarah, I should say, Dolores, I'll send you a copy of that later tonight. So we have that. That's good.
Mhm.
Okay, what else do we need to talk about? I think we've accomplished and covered all the items on the agenda. So under other business, what else do we need to talk about?
Maybe we should donate a chunk of the next meeting time to fundraising. And maybe we all start thinking about ways that we could do fundraising so that we could maybe put together a semi-plan for that at the next meeting.
Excellent. And I think also design. We'll talk about design. Steve, were you able to get around to any other monuments in the local area?
Yeah, the ones that I saw really didn't have much of a design to them. They were pretty generic.
Yeah.
There was nothing fancy about them. That's why I didn't really take any more pictures.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now
As far as the costs go, anything that's $21,000, we should be getting 3 bids on that. And I'd find other bronze plaque companies to give us a quote on that. And then we got to make sure the quality to be sure. But I have a couple of granite quarries that I can get quotes on for the granite. But for what we need to do for the for Sarah's filing, I think we got enough for there. But when we get down to actually buying things, we can get some quotes on those things.
Great. So at the next meeting, and I'll come up with a date. Let me talk about this. Is this a good time for everybody? Is 6 p.m. on a weekday night? Is that a good time for everybody?
Works for me.
Okay.
Yep.
Bill,
Yeah, I
are
can
you
feed-
okay with that?
I can feed the sheep by that sometimes, so I'm all right.
Okay, good, Tom. Thanks. Okay. So
Is that
everybody.
good for you, Ed?
I'm on Keys time. We don't know what day it is. We don't know what hour it is.
Are you coming back on the 27th?
Yep.
Okay. You'll be on Hubbston time at that point, huh?
You do know we're meeting on Thursday, not on Thursday, we're meeting on Friday,
All right.
right? All right.
Okay, so I'll come up with a date for the next meeting. Now, in general, let's just talk about a little initial part of the design. We have two beautiful monuments, one for Pan Am in World War I and one for World War II. And at the last meeting, and at the informal get-together, we said those are beautiful. I think they pay appropriate tribute to our veteran population. And I would be opposed to having a memorial that has something on top of it, like an eagle or, something that is not an integral part of the structure. And my mind says that there just might be somebody that might take a swing at something like that, and I don't want to have anything being broken off. So my thought, and obviously I'm open to your thoughts, is that it would be an integral part of the monument, anything that we have with the plaque. And we're still going to be shooting for Welcome Home. We're still going to be shooting for maybe having that famous statue of the three soldiers as a part of it, depending on what we all agree to, would be appropriate for our design. But what's your feedback on that, committee members?
My feedback would be that, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, this town has a history of things disappearing off the top of statues, to be honest with you. And I mean, when I first moved here, they were still looking for one for, I think it was the Civil War. They were looking for one. They thought it was in the bottom of Brigham Pond, for God's sakes, for a long time. Carving it into the stone itself is the way to go. Whatever you're going to do, I think, put it into the stone itself.
Let me ask this, because I'm a big USA guy, China is probably the one who makes the most decorative out of granite, and probably very competitive with the United States. And I've seen some of these ones that they've done in China, but I would much prefer to be able to source it in the United States if we can.
Oh, definitely.
Good.
Yeah, that should be a must, I think.
But I also agree with Bill.
I think we should do that. I
it
think
should
we
be
should
an
do that
infrastructure.
and not only do it, but brag about it.
Right. Yep. Good point.
Perfect.
Yeah, I also agree with Bill that, we don't need to have anything that's possibly can be destructed, because with everything that's going on today in the United States, we're taking down
Yeah.
memorials and this, that, and the other. I think I agree with you that it's gotta, we gotta put this up and have it pretty much indestructible.
Right.
Excellent. Okay, any other points that we need to bring up? Ed, appreciate you following up with those quotes. Sarah, appreciate all of the volunteer work you're doing. You'll be getting together with Bill tomorrow. at 11
And I do
o'clock.
have one other thing
Fire away.
about the GoFundMe. To get it finalized, what should I set as the initial goal? Because you have to put in, a goal of what you want to raise through those efforts.
Yeah,
And you
right.
can always change it later, but I didn't want to just, put $10,000 and,
Why wouldn't we go for 20?
I mean, we can if our goal is to raise all the funds through GoFundMe. We can always increase it if we reach our goal.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why I just wanted to talk to everybody before I set a goal, for the.
Well, we've had GoFundMe things in town that have established a goal and they, within a week, they've been able to exceed it. So I'd say, let's establish one for 20,000 and.
Okay.
Would you
I don't
agree?
know
Ed?
it depends on whether we get matching funds or not, we could
Right.
put it there for 15,000. And then if we get matching 15, we're in pretty good shape.
But that's all, okay, I'll buy that.
We can
Yeah.
always increase it to 20 if we make our goal.
What
Right.
have we done a GoFundMe for in town other than a fire or an accident or somebody's ill, something that happened to someone? What situation did we do a GoFundMe for? Does anybody know? No?
Honey, my input would be that as it's not money related, but as for years, I was the chairman of the Memorial Day Committee. And several years ago, the town took all the money out of the Memorial Day Committee. So we were on our own. And I ran an ad in an ad, it's gotta be an ad, in the Worcester Telegram and in several of the towns around us. And you cannot believe the number of organizations that came out and said, we're going to make this work for you. I had a lady that was 90 years old who was born in Hubbston, hadn't lived here for years, sent me $100 check.
Wow.
So, I think it's not going to be hard, to be honest with you.
Wonderful. All right, $15,000. We all in agreement with that? Is the initial
Yeah.
goal was set?
Yeah, I think so.
Fine with that.
Yeah, sounds
Okay.
good.
And
Super.
I think that would be refreshing to them that we're not asking for 20 grand.
Yeah, because if we establish it so high, they're gonna say, well, they're not gonna make it and so on and so forth. So I think that's a good
Yeah.
working number. So there we go, Sarah.
All right.
Okay. All right. Any other business we need to talk about? Okay. I make a motion that we adjourn and that we'll reconvene with further steps and progress with plenty of notice.
Second that.